Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
If you're a rural Alaskan resident, consider applying for a seat on one of the Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Councils by Friday, January 29, 2016. Applicants who have knowledge of the regional subsistence uses, customs, and traditions are needed. Council meetings serve as a forum for regional public involvement in subsistence management. Information at 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov.
Indie Alaska is a groundbreaking series that dives into the lives of people living in the last frontier. Each episode introduces you to colorful characters from around the state. Funding for Indie Alaska is provided in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company. Catch the latest episodes at alaskapublic.org.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us here at KAKM for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the advisory map here, there's a winter weather advisory still out throughout the afternoon today and will stay out through this evening there for the western Aleutians. Occasional whiteout conditions, blowing snow going on out there, gusts to 65 miles an hour out towards Shimmy and Attu, and that's expected to continue through this evening, possibly overnight tonight, and then gradually improve thereafter. Yesterday's satellite imagery showing a system moving up the southeast coast there with gusty winds and rain, and another area of moisture sliding up over the eastern interior, upper Tanana Valley areas, and then just some variable clouds over the interior, and pretty dry conditions though, and then a system out here over the southwest Bering Sea, bringing some rain into Alaska and Alaska Peninsula areas, back up toward the Pribilofs, and then back out to the west there, a lot of cold air coming out of the Russian Far East, dropping into the western Bering Sea, and that's sliding down into the western Aleutians there overnight and today, bringing all the wind and snow out that way, and beginning to edge its way over to the east. On today's imagery, you can see the main push here is south and then southeast, but eventually some of that colder air will begin to get in, already heading into the Adak area this afternoon. Otherwise, rain, gusty winds with this front right through here, east-southeast winds of gusting to about 40 miles an hour across the Alaska Peninsula on over to the Pribilof Island areas. Otherwise, some pretty brisk north winds there coming across St. Lawrence Island. Gales there, increased storm force winds across the western Bering and down into the western Aleutians. And this system pushing, actually weakening system, brought a little bit of flurry conditions here over the southwest interior, Kilbrook Range out along the southwest coast, but nothing very significant at all. And then another batch of moisture right now moving up into Kodiak Island and across the Alaska Peninsula with the rainfall. Otherwise, that low pressure area off the southeast coast dissipated and moved northward this afternoon. That brought some light rain and snow showers, scattered rain and snow showers over the northern panhandle there, particularly around the Juneau area, scattered showers on down to the south, and rainfall amounts over the last 24 hours. Sitka was one of the heavier locations there with 0.7 of an inch. Otherwise, Juneau had about 1/4 of an inch. 1 inch of snow on the ground is measured this afternoon there, and then lesser amounts down to the south. Otherwise, a dry day here for the Prince William Sound, Copper River Basin areas with some areas of fog there around Gultana, also around Cook Inlet and a little bit up into the Matanuska Valley. And light snow again today from north way over to Delta, right around the Fairbanks there, and some flurries at Tanana. Otherwise, again, variably cloudy, some areas clear, others mostly cloudy. Arctic coast, a little bit of flurries and fog there around Barrow at times, and hit and miss on the west side of the coastline there. But both Cape Lisburne and Point Hope reporting some snow today in lower conditions there. Then the winds pick up, and Shishmaref through the Bering Strait, Tin City on down to St. Lawrence Island. Seeing some light snow, gusty north winds there, up to 45 miles an hour at St. Lawrence Island. Northeasterlies then turn northerly out here and get pretty strong. Again, the storm warnings today out over the western Aleutians with those gusts 65 miles per hour or more. A lot of snow shower conditions there. Edging in toward the central Aleutians today, but mostly rain showers over the Fox Islands there, that low park just to the west. Rain and snow showers over the Alaska Peninsula, and then that band of rain here along the Alaska Peninsula there. And Cold Bay picked up about 3/4 of an inch of rain out of this slow-moving front over the last 24 hours. By contrast, just 5/100ths of an inch up at St. Paul. Anyway, looking at the forecast for tonight, you'll see this system down here to the south pushes up toward the Queen Charlotte's initially there, but the rain spreads back in late tonight over Prince of Wales Island. Also an increase in the winds. Still a chance of some snow showers up to the north, but really hit and miss, and no accumulations expected at all. Still rain and snow showers here over the southern Kenai Peninsula. Light snow off and on throughout the afternoon at Seldovia, and there's a chance of some moisture here down in that area this evening. Occasional rain, fog, and drizzle Kodiak Island, and then kind of a mixture of precipitation here over Bristol Bay. Chance of snow there far north as Kipnuk, maybe Nunivak Island, and back into the Pribilofs there. Northeast winds here, that cold air coming out of the interior into the Bering Sea, initially heading off to the southwest here, and then dropping southward, and definitely into the snow shower conditions there for the Adak and Atka area, along with those increasing winds. Winds probably will max out here at any time and then begin to diminish out over the western Aleutian areas. And then otherwise, no change over the interior. You can see kind of a partly to mostly overnight period again with relatively light winds. Not too bad in the winds on the Arctic coast as well. Still a chance of some flurries and fog up there, making conditions areas of marginal VFR, just a risk of some IFR, but not too bad over the north slope areas. And then for tomorrow, we'll see this system moves a little bit to the northeast there, the main front pushing up toward the coast for gale warnings, wind and rain, spreading northward, mixture of precipitation. You get up to about Juneau on up toward the pass there, and even some moisture here working back in toward the eastern interior once again. So a day tomorrow much like today for Northway, possibly a flurry or two around Delta and on up toward Eagle. Otherwise, gradient increasing a little bit here, so look for some channeled winds through the Alaska Range passes, and pretty breezy northeast winds here on the southwest interior. So that's going to keep this moisture at bay and make it a little difficult, but there's still a chance of maybe some flurries or light snow right along the southwest coast, particularly Nunivak Island. Rain or snow again for the Pribilofs or that frontal boundary just to the north there, but you're going to be right on the edge of the rain and snow line. Showers, gusty winds, gale force winds continue for St. Lawrence Island, and that area of flurries probably will lift northward to be far enough north that even Barrow won't see any, so just some variable clouds. Temperatures tomorrow well below zero again, at 20 to 35 below range for the north slope, and well below zero over the interior as well. Beginning to see these winds pick up with the tightening gradient. And for the outlook for Wednesday, rain and snow showers here over the eastern Aleutians. Should be a dry day over the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and clear skies extending down over Bristol Bay, back up along the southwest coast with that dry northeast wind flow, but St. Lawrence Island southward, picking up moisture over the Bering Sea. So a lot of snow showers coming right into the eastern Aleutian areas here, particularly around Nikolsky. Possibly in Alaska, might get cold enough for some snow, but moisture kind of limited. And another system, or actually the low pressure area, weakens a little bit and pulls up over the western Gulf of Alaska. Another frontal boundary develops, and that'll bring another surge of moisture up to the North Gulf Coast, especially into the afternoon for rain, Yakutat over to Cordova, kind of a mixed precipitation pattern shaping up for Prince William Sound. And then chance of snow here for the western Prince William Sound area to the Chugach Mountains, cutting northeastward there, and then up the eastern interior, mostly cloudy, occasional light snow or flurries through that area, but mostly clear skies here, central interior, all the way out to the coastline. Norton Sound, mostly clear. VFR flying there across the Seward Peninsula, on up into Kotzebue Sound, a few clouds on the Arctic coast. and occasional rain there for the Panhandle and some gusty winds. The strongest winds will be back out to the west here, but still looking at some southeasterlies, possible small craft advisories, possible gales, chance of snow over the northern areas, rainfall down along the coastal areas to the south, particularly Prince of Wales Island. Otherwise, out to the west here, again, a lot of snow shower conditions for the Aleutians, but much lighter winds now, especially over the central and western areas, and gusty northeast winds for the Pribilofs, but not quite as strong Wednesday as they will be tonight and tomorrow out in those areas, and pretty light winds here over the Bristol Bay area and the Alaska Peninsula. Temperatures this afternoon, we'll start over the southeast coast where it was warmest, 48 degrees at Cape Decision, 47 there at Annette. Metlakatla, again, the warm spot with 50 even this afternoon. Otherwise, 33 at Juneau, 29 over at Yakutat. Cordova had 21. Mid-20s here, Seward and Homer with 26. 15 at Kenai and 11 in Anchorage, but 11 below there at Squinta, with some areas in the Sinton Valley this morning dropping to around 20 below zero. Right around zero there in the Copper River Basin with 8 degrees at Northway, 1 above at Fairbanks, and -2 at Fort Yukon, but in some clearer skies back to the west in the Koyukuk Valley, 18 below at Bettles, 27 below at Umiat, 35 below at Ugnukaparik this afternoon, and the cold spot in the state this morning was Arctic Village at 38 below, and they came up to 8 below, 38 below, and they rose to 8 degrees below zero this afternoon, and generally below zero here over the northwest with -13 at Kotzebue, 0 at Nome, same thing at Shishmaref, 18 below over at McGrath, but 7 above there for Bethel, and out in the Bering Sea, 30s for the Pribilofs, as well as from about Nikolsky out to Atka, 28 out at Shimia, and 30s to lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island. For lows tonight, again quite cold up over in the northern areas, 20 to 40 below in some in the areas up through here, with the the below zero temperatures, Copper River Basin and in the Tanana Valley. But again, 0 to 10 above here, south central Alaska, colder in the Susitna Valley, 30s over the Kodiak Island area in the Alaska Peninsula. Highs for tomorrow back into the 30s and lower 40s for the southeast coast, 30s out here over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, with below zero readings over the interior to 20 to 30 below again over the North Slope areas, and 0 to 10 below for the Tanana Valley. And then for flying weather, marginal VFR here across much of the Panhandle, but VFR over the northern areas, possible IFR there toward the border, and marginal VFR here along the east side of Kodiak Island into the Alaska Peninsula, with areas of marginal VFR along the entire stretch of the Arctic coast up there. IFR here for the Pribilof Islands, back down into the central Aleutians. Passes Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR once again tomorrow. And for Lake Clark and Merrill and Rainy, all VFR, windy VFR as well. And Isabel, Mentasta looking really good. Tanita VFR once again. Portage, no problems. Chilkoot and White, far enough north to be in the VFR conditions. For the freezing levels, 2,000 feet up to around Juneau, 4,000 feet over the southern Panhandle areas, and then 2,000 feet back across Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula areas. And for icing, occasional light to isolated moderate rime icing there below about 14,000 feet for the Panhandle, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, with that other boundary out here over the southeast Bering Sea. Could bring some icing below about 10,000 feet. And the upper level wind flow chart, upper low here right over the eastern Aleutian areas, and then a trough right off the southeast coast, but kind of a split flow here. The main jet well to the south, carrying all the big storms off that way. Southwesterly flow, 50 knots across the northern Bering Sea and into the interior. And for 9,000 feet, northeasterlies 20 to 30 knots out into the Bering Sea, 35 knots there for the northern Bering, turning northerlies at 30 to 40 knots across the Aleutians, and southeasterlies possibly up to 35 knots there along the Panhandle. And at 3,000 feet, we've got some northeast winds up to 40 knots near Kodiak Island. A little stronger here, 40 to 50 knots south-southeasterlies again at 3,000 feet. Otherwise, lighter over the interior, but kind of an increase in the winds here, 25 to 30 knots through this area out into the Bering Sea. And for turbulence, occasional moderate chop all along the southeast coast, less of that farther east, but moderate chop all the way up to Yakutat, and then pretty smooth here for south central Alaska. But from the Alaska Range westward, turbulence increases, getting kind of moderate here over the Yukon Delta up to St. Lawrence Island, Nunivak Island, and also out over the central Aleutians with those northerly winds. And after the break, hang or flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. On behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, thank you to Alaska Public Media for sponsoring this program. We're glad you could join us. We are happy to have Katie Doherty back on the program to tell us about her job with an airline that's based in Anchorage. Welcome back, Katie.
Thank you.
On our last show, we talked about how you got involved in aviation and some of the flying that you'd done early in your career. And now we'd like to talk about your job as a flight operations training manager. So what type of training are you responsible for providing at your company?
Pilots, flight attendants, and dispatchers.
Okay. And about how many of those employees do you have?
We have about 100 and maybe 120.
Okay. And do you see, I guess speaking particularly about pilots, do you see pilots that typically need more work or that you wish that they knew more about something before they came with the company?
We do. We see local folks that fly the 135 side. And they don't get much instrument time, and so I think probably instrument skills would be probably the biggest thing that we're kind of looking for.
And is that something that you look for before you hire them, or is there something that you can do to help boost up their skills after they come onto the company?
We do a simulator ride with them before we hire, and if it looks like, we do that at the Medallion Safety Foundation, and we do encourage pilots to go, if they don't do well, to go and kind of get their skills back up to speed. We also have a lot of instructors, our pilots, and so they can kind of get together on their own time and go over some of the instruments stuff with those pilots as well.
Okay, so that's some great advice. If a pilot is potentially looking at coming onto your company, then spending some time at Medallion on the simulators and flying on instruments would be a great help, probably for their interview and the check ride.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any advice on how to stay current? Because in addition to your duties as a training manager, you're also a captain of an airplane.
Yes.
And you keep up those skills, but how do you stay current?
I also, when I do the rides, when we're doing the evaluations, I actually fly the simulator at Medallion on my own, mostly just to make sure that everything's working properly, but it also helps out a little bit. And then I'm also required to keep my 90-day currency, so sometimes I get really close to that. I just last week had to fly because I was 4 days from not being landing current, so we have to keep an eye on that as well. And then we do our training in Miami in simulators, and so as captains we go and do that twice a year.
Okay.
Keep current. That doesn't help here, but
but it does help.
yeah,
At least keeps you familiar with the airplane.
yeah.
Do you have any safety advice for general aviation pilots? I mean, you've given some great advice that might apply to general aviation pilots as well. Do you have anything specifically?
I think, when we go to the airport, you already have kind of looked at the weather. You already kind of have your day planned out, pretty how it's going to look. But I think being prepared and having a plan is probably important.
And that makes great sense for private pilots because they don't have the support of a dispatcher and somebody in flight ops and flight following in a 121 operation like your pilots have.
Right.
So there's a lot more that's required in the planning and preparation for general aviation pilots.
Yeah.
Makes perfect
It's
sense.
on your own shoulders.
Do you have any advice that you would give to people who are looking at piloting as a career?
I think you're having a plan for how you're going to build your time, and there's lots of different ways out there. Alaska is rich with pilots, and so there's always someone to get advice from where a good career path would be. Yeah.
Is there any best experience in your background that helped prepare you for your current job?
You know, that's a good question. You know, I think it's just all as a whole. I think you can get in an airplane and you can do the same thing over and over and over again, or you can learn every single flight, and that's what I've chosen to do. And I think that's what good pilots do. Is you should walk away after every single hour with something that you've learned or something you would do differently next time.
That's great advice.
Yeah, I just keep learning and keep up with the industry. There's a lot of changes going on. It's a really exciting time right now, and just keep up with what's going on as well.
Okay. Well, thank you, Katie. We appreciate you being here with us. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy this program, I encourage you to become a member of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. If you have any interest in becoming a pilot for a major airline, please take Katie's advice, and even if you're a general aviation pilot and that's all you want to do, please make every flight a learning flight. Fly safely.
Welcome back. Chukchi Sea is nearly all filled in with ice now. We've got sea ice increasing in the Bering Strait there. Also around St. Lawrence Island, an increase in the sea ice, especially south of the area there. And looks like here along the southwest coast, or actually, yeah, all along the coast here, east-northeast winds will continue for the next 4 or 5 days or longer. So looking for the ice to expand westward here, about 15 to 30 nautical miles through Saturday. And on to the coastal forecast. Gales here along the coast for tomorrow, south to southeast, 35 to 40 knots with seas running 17 to 20 feet out here. Southeast 40 for Clarence Strait with 8-foot seas. Small craft advisories for Stevens Passage here, and northerly gales from northern Lynn Canal. Those drop off considerably on Wednesday, just 10-knot northerlies up there. And southeast 25, still some small craft advisories for Clarence Strait. Southerly winds here 20 knots on the south coast, 30 to as high as 35 knots to the north. And for Cook Inlet, northern Cook Inlet, small craft advisories at least for part of the day tomorrow. Gales south of the Forelands all the way down to Shelikof Strait. And northeast winds 40 knots here from the east side of Kodiak Island right up to the North Gulf Coast, northeast 20 Prince William Sound. And gales continue, minimum gales anyway, east-northeast winds here for the North Gulf Coast and the Barrens, north 30 for Kodiak, Shelikof Strait, north 20, small craft advisories for Kachemak Bay, or Kamishak Bay, up into southern Cook Inlet. And for Bristol Bay, northeast 30 knots with heavy freezing spray here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula with those small craft advisories. Much lighter winds here on the Pacific side of the peninsula, but still northeast 30 there southwest of Sitkinak. And then for Wednesday, northeast 20 to 25 knots with heavy freezing spray occurring here for Bristol Bay and the peninsula, and northerlies 20 knots southwest Kodiak Island. For the Aleutians, eastern Aleutians looking at northeast winds here 15 to 20 knots tomorrow, but those northwest winds working eastward, and full gale here for the Adak and Atka area out to the west, and then winds diminishing down to 25 knots tomorrow afternoon for the far western zone out there. And northerlies at 20 for the next day. Otherwise, westerly gales here for the central Aleutians, on over toward Nikolsky, but right now northwest small craft advisories there for the Dutch Harbor area with 11 to 14-foot seas. And south of Nunivak Island, northeast 30 knots, and then north of the island, gale force northeasterlies all the way up to St. Lawrence Island, northeast 40 for St. Matthew Island, and small craft advisories continue for the Pribilof Islands with heavy freezing spray all the way up to the Bering Strait. And for Wednesday, still gales here north of Nunivak Island, but winds coming down a little bit, 30 knots out of the northeast for St. Lawrence Island, St. Paul northeast to 25. And along the Arctic coast there, central and eastern coastline, easterlies 15 to as high as 20 knots toward demarcation point, northeast 15 on the west side. Brisk wind advisories from Wales to Cape Thompson. And then for Wednesday, northeasterly brisk wind advisory level conditions here, again from Wales to Cape Thompson, but northeast 15 for the central and western coast. And on the east side, things become a little more light and variable there with a really slack gradient. For tonight, again, the next front sliding northward, bringing an increase in the rain chances along with the wind here, especially over the southern panel, just a risk of some snow showers lingering over the north. And then rain here for Kodiak Island, occasional rain and fog with a mixture of precipitation up across Bristol Bay to possibly Kuskokwim Bay and back across the Pribilof Islands. This low pulling eastward slowly there, and that'll allow the colder air to come in at least to the central Aleutians there. But look for mixed rain and snow showers with lighter winds over the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula areas. And again, the winter weather advisory ends this evening there for the western Aleutians. And then for tomorrow, that low now to the Alaska Peninsula, still wet conditions there for the Pribilof Islands. Maybe the southwest coast could see a little light snow. Pretty fair over the interior here. Chance of snow over the eastern upper Tanana, the upper Tanana Valley. And then rain and wind with those gale force winds into the southeast coast. And then that low center pulls back here over the western Gulf of Alaska. Rain spreading up to the North Gulf Coast in the afternoon, and clear and cold over the interior.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
If you are a rural Alaskan resident with an interest in preserving subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing for future generations, and maintaining an open forum for public expressions, opinions, and concerns regarding subsistence, consider applying for one of the Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Councils by Friday, January 29, 2016. More info at 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.